Part 59. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 581. Thank you for your hard work, brother. I think we should go to the third world. The third world? You mean the world of Transformers? Well, maybe it's really suitable for you. Okay, let's go. Looking at the monsters all over the floor downstairs, Xiaoming nodded. This world full of monsters is really not suitable for Zhang-san. Since he plans to settle in the world of Transformers, let's do it. The Insect King stuffed the rear insect Zhang-san back into Kunlun. There was the main body invisible in Kunlun, so there was no need to worry about Zhang-san daring to do anything. Why did he return to the reincarnation space again? Alas, it was not to deal with this time traveler. In fact, Zhang-san may not be able to cause any big trouble in the real world. After all, there are so many high-level reincarnations. Xiaoming also doesn't think that he can be invincible just by knowing the plot and being cunning. However, since Zhang-san was bumped into by himself, he can't just leave him alone. This can also be regarded as Zhang-san's opportunity. Although Xiaoming can't allow Zhang-san to continue to stay in the real world. But he can't just kill an innocent person casually. Although he has all these bad ideas in his mind, he hasn't implemented them yet. He may just be fantasizing. When Xiaoming was fantasizing before, he also had ideas about movie stars, which is understandable. But he is familiar with the plot and is a reincarnationist, which is a bomb that may explode at any time. After thinking about it, he can only be exiled to the reincarnation world. If he is a disaster, please let him go to another world to cause disaster. It seems a bit irresponsible to that world. But Xiaoming has other plans. Xiaoming's indecision will definitely make many people laugh. Zhang-san is a threat, or a bug, why not kill him? Why bother to spend so much effort? But we can't forget Xiaoming's sword of judgment. Xiaoming has to stab himself every day. Killing a person who knows he is innocent will definitely add a heavy stroke to his sin column. Xiaoming has to be cautious, otherwise when the sword of judgment backfires on himself, it will not be a joke. In the Chu galaxy, Xiaoming directly confronted this guy. As a reincarnationist, Zhang-san could not be trapped in the reincarnation world, and Xiaoming was reluctant to waste the dragon trapping wristband on Zhang-san. So the first step was to ask Zhang-san to give up his identity as a reincarnationist. Then he would be smuggled into a certain reincarnation world to settle down. It was equivalent to traveling through time again. Without the identity of a reincarnationist, he would not have many chances to return to the real world. Xiaoming had already exposed his cards, and Zhang-san did not dare to firmly oppose it. Xiaoming's treatment of him was already very restrained. If he still did not accept this condition, it would undoubtedly mean, Zhang-san, just want to make trouble in your world. It would be strange if Xiaoming did not kill him. With his brain, he quickly figured out the pros and cons of it, and had to accept Xiaoming's arrangement, which at most asked for preferential conditions for himself. One of the conditions was that he asked to choose the world he would settle in. The range of choice was 7 worlds. He thought that 7 reincarnation worlds would take 7 weeks of real time and 7 reincarnation worlds. In such a long time, with his eloquence, he could probably convince the Insect King. As long as he could show the great value of knowing the plot, who would be willing to give up on him? He never expected that the 7 reincarnation worlds would only take a few hours to fly for Xiaoming. If it weren't for the fact that he had to observe each world for a day or half a day, it would take less than half a day to fly through the 7 worlds. Zhang-san's judgment of Xiaoming reached a new height. Who is this insect? It can isolate the call of the reincarnation space, it can bring people to sneak into the reincarnation world, it can also cross the border of the reincarnation world. It was the first time that Zhang-san knew that the reincarnation worlds were piled together. This guy must be the GM administrator of the reincarnation space. He is indeed worthy of being a senior time traveler. Such a capable person is willing to let him go, and Zhang San is also completely convinced. With this big guy in the real world, he can't make a name for himself. This ignorant fool, the real world is full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers, Xiao Ming has to keep a low profile. If he dares to show his head, he will surely die. After Xiao Ming entered the reincarnation world again, he was granted a stay of half a month. His main body had already entered Kunlun in stealth and looked at Zhang San. The insect king flew over the world border 7 times. He let Zhang San see 7 optional worlds. Xiao Ming thought Zhang San would choose the 6th world, because that world was a biochemical crisis. The top combat power was not very high. If he could infect an umbrella base, it would be enough for Zhang San to dominate the world. In the biochemical crisis world, there are a lot of zombies to trouble him, and Xiao Ming can also rest assured. However, Zhang San is a new generation of 4 half-traversers with ideals, morality, culture, and discipline. How can he be satisfied with a small biochemical crisis world? Especially when he knew that the world was only as big as a city and a small piece of land around it. He was even more unwilling. So he chose the Transformers world. Although this world does not occupy a particularly large area on the Earth, it has an extension in the direction of space. Overall, it is still not small. It was enough for Zhang San to have fun. Thinking of the group of powerful Transformers he had scanned, Xiao Ming couldn't help but admire Zhang San's bravery. If you dare to play tricks in front of these big guys, Zhang San may end up in a bad way. Let me remind you. Your mental power is full and you can use the infection skill at any time. Ah! Do you know about infection? Isn't this nonsense? I am the master of the Zerg race, forget it, you still don't know what a master is. Xiao Ming was too lazy to explain, let me give you a reminder. You must be careful when choosing infection targets. There are many masters in Transformers. Brother, big brother, Zhang San said quickly, I'm not greedy, but I'm asking you a favor. Can you protect me once when I use the infection skill? Looking at his flickering life energy, Xiao Ming knew that he had made a wrong idea again. He shook his head and said, take care of yourself. I still have a favor to repay, and I can't accompany you anymore. I wish you all your wishes come true. After that, he spread his wings and flew away. Looking at the insect king who disappeared in an instant, Zhang San yelled, Today you are indifferent to me, but tomorrow I will make it impossible for you to climb up. He spat out angrily and kicked his feet a few times. Then he said angrily, don't I just want to infect the dead Optimus Prime? For the sake of all time travelers, you, the GM, can't help me. You must be stingy. Zhang Xiaoming, who was watching him from behind, silently shook his head. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 582. Yin Xiaoming stayed here to protect Zhang San for a while. The main purpose was to test whether knowing the plot well was really awesome. Throwing Zhang San into a world with high combat power was very dangerous. Although he chose it himself. In addition, the world of Transformers was also very attractive to Xiaoming. He also wanted to get some benefits. As a queen of the Zerg, Zhang San had no vocal organs. The communication with the Zerg king was also through mental communication. But in fact, he had a hidden trick. After a long period of thinking and hard work, Zhang San mastered the ability to vibrate the air with mental power to make sounds. It's just that doing so consumes a lot of mental power, so it's better not to use it at ordinary times. If he wasn't angry this time, he wouldn't have roared like this. Failed to trick the Zerg King to protect him, the plan to infect Optimus Prime's body was not very reliable. Originally, he was counting on this. But without the protection of the Zerg King, Neither the Decepticons nor the Autobots would allow him to do this. Zhang San began to recall the plot of Transformers. He also had some misunderstandings. When Optimus Prime died, there were a large number of high-level Transformers present. Xiaoming had no ability to protect him in front of these steel giants. Fortunately, Xiaoming did not agree to him at all. Zhang San had to look for another opportunity. Based on the intelligence collected before, Zhang San concluded that this was in the plot of Transformers 1. And it had just begun. Only a few Transformers died in Transformers 1. But almost all of them died in broad daylight. It was too difficult to infect with such a bug body. Only Roadblock, who was knocked to the ground by Bumblebee at the beginning, did not know if he was dead. But it was certain that he was seriously injured. And it was in the dead of night, in a remote and deserted place. This was the only chance in the short term. With Roadblock's body, he would have good combat power. If he was fast enough, he might be able to grab the fire source. After that, everything would be fine. Find a place to hide and absorb the energy of the fire source to evolve. Unless he could stand up to Optimus Prime and Megatron, he would never show his head. After making up his mind, Zhang San began to move his body slowly. Slow, compared with other Zergs. Compared with the speed of humans, he was not slow. Because of his excitement, his mental power was affected. When he was thinking about this matter, he talked to himself intermittently. Xiaoming, who was hidden on the side, heard 50% to 60%. The most important news, the location of the spark source, of course, Zhang San did not say. But Xiaoming already knew where it was. Because when he first came to this world, Xiaoming used mental scanning to collect intelligence. Xiaoming had already seen the secret base where Megatron and the spark source were hidden. At the same time, Xiaoming also discovered Bumblebee and other Transformers who were already active on Earth. The shielding measures of the facilities of the United States can indeed hide the special radiation of the spark source. But there is no special resistance to Xiaoming's mental scanning. Of course, such heavy lead and reinforced concrete consume a lot of mental power to penetrate. So Xiaoming missed it the first time because he didn't observe it carefully. This is because spiritual power cannot be replenished with source energy. Xiaoming doesn't like to waste it when he uses it, especially in the reincarnation world. Now, after listening to Zhang San's mumbling, the only place Xiaoming can think of to hide the fire source is the base. It's impossible to search for it at this time. Xiaoming took a closer look and it was true. Megatron in the ice and the huge fire source were there, and he almost missed the treasure. The fire source is a huge cube with extremely powerful special energy inside. This is definitely a treasure that is no less than the 5 spiritual beads in the fairy sword world. Thinking about its special effects, Xiaoming's saliva is about to flow out. At the same time, doubts arose in his mind. Such a big treasure has such strong energy. How did the reincarnationists knock off the fragments? Is this thing not strong? But Xiaoming didn't feel any danger, so let's set off immediately. Such a good thing can't be wasted. So Yin Xiaoming left 2 shadow clones, wearing invisible uniforms, and followed Zhang San secretly. If the countryman saw him with his big bug look and called the police, he would probably be game over. The news about the fire source came from him. Sending 2 clones to protect him was a return gift. As for stealing the fire source, Xiaoming would not feel any guilt. A few seconds later, the alarm sounded in the special base of the 7th district built under the Hoover Dam. The base was in chaos, with countless soldiers running wildly and knocking over countless scientific researchers. A terrible news was passed to the superiors layer by layer. The cube with mysterious energy suddenly disappeared. This was of course done by Xiaoming. Since it was stealing, try not to show your face. Xiaoming not only became invisible, but also used every second to open the wormhole, teleport to the vicinity of the fire source, store the fire source in Kunlun, and then teleport away. Among these, only the step of collecting the fire source was a waste of time. This treasure has enough energy, but it is not very stable. It took Xiaoming nearly a minute to collect it. From the outside, it only took more than 1 second. If Xiaoming only accelerated without stealth, he would still be discovered by the monitoring equipment. If you only turn invisible without accelerating, the movement of the fire source will definitely trigger the defense mechanism inside the base. Once heavy weapons open fire, Zhang Xiaoming will not be injured under the protection of love and the spiritual shield. But it is hard to say whether he can successfully collect the fire source. At the beginning, Xiaoming did not plan to teleport over, but just wanted to open the wormhole and collect the fire source directly from a distance. But he did not do it. The energy of the fire source is too strong, and Xiaoming's wormhole skills are not deep enough. The passing of the fire source may cause the collapse of the wormhole. Xiaoming had to go there to steal things. And the first time he wanted to put the fire source into Guangmingding. For the same reason, when Xiaoming was about to do that, his temples throbbed wildly. Guangmingding could not bear the fire source. In the end, he had no choice but to put it in Kunlun. Xiaoming was very worried. Kunlun had a habit of merging good things. After escaping, he immediately checked. Sure enough, Kunlun was not polite at all, and the fire source had begun to be integrated into Kunlun. Kunlun will not spit out what he eats. Xiaoming has no ability to interrupt the fusion process. In fact, he dare not interrupt it. He can only divert it. When Kunlun is desperately digesting the fire source, Xiaoming tries his best to transfer the special energy in it to the source energy tree in the reincarnation space. I hope I can have a sip of soup. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 583. There is no doubt that the process of Kunlun absorbing the fire source is very long. The initial stage consumed 7 or 8 days, and Kunlun's volume grew to 700 cubic meters. Its daily growth rate also increased to 0.02 m. After that, it was a long-term process of releasing energy. In fact, up to now, all the treasures that have been integrated into Kunlun are still slowly releasing their own energy. Guangmingding is just a space, but Kunlun is actually more like the prototype of a world, a small world. It may not look very different, but when you go deep into it, Xiaoming can still vaguely feel the difference. In fact, Kunlun and Xiaoming's source energy tree are communicating with each other all the time, but Xiaoming's level is not enough and he has not realized it yet. The special energy derived by Xiaoming from the fire source did not increase the height of the source energy tree by an inch. However, a new flower bloomed on the silver source energy tree. This is the first flower on this tree and the second flower in the source energy forest. The new ability is very simple: sea-level transformers enlightenment. The special energy of the spark source is equivalent to a set of solidified programs for creating life. It is equivalent to a weakened version of Nuwa. Xiaoming's new skill is a weakened version of the spark source. Using this skill requires a lot of source energy. It can turn a machine into a transformer. The larger the machine you turn into, the more source energy you consume. The transformer you turn into cannot exceed Class C at the beginning. It is okay if it is lower than Class C. Therefore, some machines that are too big cannot be turned into a transformer. For example, an aircraft carrier. Once that thing becomes a transformer, it must exceed Class C. This is beyond Xiaoming's ability. Of course, Class C is not weak at the beginning, and it can be improved through training or changing equipment in the future. Maybe you can also plant super energy seeds for transformers. The new transformer will gain good wisdom. and have a soul that tends to be good and lawful like the Autobots. This is also very normal. There are roughly two types of Transformers created by the Spark Source, Autobots or Decepticons. With Xiao Ming's personality, he is naturally more compatible with the Autobots. Moreover, the machines that Xiao Ming can turn on are about the size of a small car. It is a low-end version of the Autobots. Not only do they not have the Autobot logo, but they also do not have their own weapons and equipment. Xiao Ming needs to equip them separately. And there is another important problem. The Transformers turned on by this ability have independent souls and are not bound by Xiao Ming. They may choose the same position as Xiao Ming because Xiao Ming is the creator. But there is no absolute subordinate relationship between the two. They can completely break away from Xiao Ming and do what they want. This source energy consumption is not worth it. So Xiao Ming does not plan to turn on Transformers casually for the time being. The plan is to turn on his own Mind Beast. The Mind Beast still has a certain degree of loyalty to him. Of course, the new ability needs to be practiced, so Xiao Ming first uses mind power to simulate the embodiment of the hacker energy pistol. Then turn it on. Needless to say, a mini-transformer appeared in front of Xiao Ming. Xiao Ming named him Zhongnan. Such a little guy has very low health and defense. To be honest, he is not as good as an ordinary person. But the attack power is very strong. After all, it is a hacker energy pistol, and the attack power can reach D level. And it is small, cute, and very adorable. Xiao Ming planted the superpower seed of telekinesis in him, and the first task for him was to work hard to cultivate telekinesis and strive for self-sufficiency. Zhongnan was used for experimentation. Xiao Ming probably won't need him in the future. Maybe he will let him accompany Xiao Xiao to play. At this time, Zhang San had already successfully picked up the body of Roadblock. Regardless of whether he died before, after being infected by him, Roadblock was completely dead. Zhang San also became a transformer with two forms, police car and humanoid. Xiao Ming couldn't guess to what extent he could control this body in the future. Seeing that he had the ability to protect himself, Yin Xiaoming no longer cared about this world. He quietly sneaked into an armory of the M country. Select the template for the next Transformer Telekinesis Beast. 2 flowers bloom, each showing its own branch. Green Xiaoming said that he would go to repay the favor, and it was not a lie. I remember that in Resident Evil 1, due to some strange circumstances, the heroine Alice and the hero Matt were both killed by Xiaoming's skeleton soldiers. Later, when their bodies were harvested, Alice became a skeleton knifeman and Matt became a ghost. Now both of them have a D-level combat power. Alice is much stronger than Matt. This Matt is also a complete loser. With professional treasures such as the 100 Ghost Box to train him, he has never been able to catch up with Alice's combat power. He is not talented enough. Although it was an accidental killing before, Xiao Ming felt very sorry. In the world of Resident Evil 2, Xiao Ming actually saw these two people again. So he thought about returning a favor. When the Insect King returned to the world of Resident Evil 2, the zombie virus had already broken out for a while. 1/3 of the people in Raccoon City were infected. Of course, less than 1/10 of them actually became zombies, and most of them were still in the incubation period. Xiao Ming was not interested in following the plot, and released the antidote for the T-virus as soon as possible. It spread throughout the entire Raccoon City. After the alien world on Mars, Xiao Ming rarely used this move. But the effect is amazing. In the city, all the zombies that had completely mutated died. All the infected humans who had not mutated recovered. Unfortunately, Matt, who had become the goddess of vengeance, had been infected too deeply by the T-virus. He was killed by the antidote. It was a relief for him. Alice and the T-virus were in the initial fusion state. The antidote released by Xiao Ming eliminated the T-virus in her body and restored her to the state of an ordinary human. Xiaoming felt that it seemed that he had done something bad with good intentions again. Later, when he saw Alice's ecstatic state after she returned to normal, Xiaoming felt relieved. There are too many bad people in the city. There are few good people in the umbrella company from top to bottom. Including those mercenaries who obeyed orders to shoot ordinary people, also including those scientific researchers who knew the company's various inhumane research but still acted calmly. If these bastards are not cleaned up, the residents of the city will not have a good life. It is still easy to deal with these people. The crimes they have committed are enough to sentence them to death. For this reason, Xiaoming released the 100 ghosts led by Xiao Hong, who could kill people without being seen. And they would not affect ordinary people. Most of the damned criminals of the umbrella company were killed by the 100 ghosts. Some of those who were not guilty of death were also frightened by these high-level ghost soldiers and ghost lieutenants. Xiaoming can only do so much. I hope the rest of the people can establish a better order. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 584. Uncle, Angie wants to sit in that. A little girl sitting in a wheelchair grabbed the corner of Green Xiaoming's clothes and made a request. Of course, the real body of the insect king cannot be used. Xiaoming now uses the transformation technique to become a middle-aged uncle. This little girl is also Angela, an important character in Resident Evil 2. She was born with a serious disability. Her father, Dr. Charles Ashford, is a medical scientist. He developed the T-virus to save his daughter. As a result, the results were stolen by the umbrella company and used for various inhumane experiments. In order to continue to treat his daughter, he had to go along with the flow. He also developed a more powerful G-virus. His situation is pitiful, and his crime should be punished. For his daughter's disability, he indirectly killed countless lives. This kind of person is also sinful. So when Xiao Hong led the 100 ghosts to clean up the umbrella forces in the first round, her father had already died. Of course, if Xiaoming really understood these, he might let him go. Put a sort of judgment in him and let him make meritorious contributions. Unfortunately, Xiaoming didn't know. But Angela suddenly became disabled in both legs again because Xiaoming released the antidote for the T-virus. Xiaoming was to blame for this. So Xiaoming transformed into a middle-aged uncle and appeared beside Angela. Treated him. Little Angela's condition is incurable for the medical level of this world. Only the black technology T-virus can deal with it. However, for Xiaoming, who has a full-body plug-in, there is still a way. Life Essence and life-saving Golden Needle can be used together to persist in treatment for a few days to solve the problem. But her father has been killed by Xiaoming's subordinates. The power of the umbrella in Raccoon City has also been cleared up. Angela has become a child with no one to take care of her. Xiaoming had to take care of her. He lied to her that her father had something important to do. Xiaoming will take care of her temporarily. When it is inconvenient, Xiaoming can also send uniformed nurses and maids to take care of Angela. Dr. Ashford himself has poor legs and feet. Although he takes good care of little Angela, there are always some things he can't take care of. After the appearance of the middle-aged Uncle Green Xiaoming, Angela was worried about her father for 2 days, and then she took the uncle to play with her. Now she applied to ride the roller coaster. Such a young child is not allowed to ride according to the law, and it is very dangerous. However, with Xiaoming here, all the dangers are nonsense. With the mental shield on his body, it would be strange if there is any danger. Xiaoming successfully confused the administrator and tourists, and sat on it with Angela in his arms. Then the little girl became addicted, and she played all the bungee jumping machines and U-shaped skateboards that children cannot play. When it was time for dinner, the heroine Alice appeared at the table. She was found by Xiaoming's shadow clone. She and Angela have a good personality and soon became friends. Xiaoming can't always stay here to take care of Angela, and he doesn't want to smuggle such a young child out. After thinking about it, Xiaoming only knows one Alice in the whole world. Who else can he find if not her? Alice didn't trust anyone easily. But after Xiaoming's shadow clone showed a certain strength, she had to believe most of it, so she came to see Green Xiaoming in person. Xiaoming took away the combat power given to her by the T-virus, but he could give it back to her with life essence and super energy seeds. Basically, Xiaoming gave her most of the supernatural energy. As Xiaoming's ability gradually strengthened, the life essence made by the Insect King now is no longer the primary life essence that can only be added to life forms below level 2 to increase some physical properties. The current life essence can also provide a small amount of supplementation and improvement to various supernatural energies of life forms. This function is useful for Xiaoming himself. Xiaoming's other supernatural energies are easy to say, but the original force has never been very high. Using the upgraded life essence, you can improve a small part. Don't underestimate this small part, it has increased several times compared to before. You can move larger objects with your mind. The main reason for this change is that Xiaoming feels that the 3 abilities of creating people given by Nuwa are like this. After many days, the deadline of this reincarnation world came, and Xiaoming quietly left. Not only did he give Alice a stronger fighting power than before, he also told her some of his understanding of the Protection Mountain Company. He also left her 2 good helpers, the skeleton knifeman Alice and the ghost Matt. There are also 2 corruptor zombies. Can this be called a perfect return? The ability to use and manipulate these undead arms is still related to Alice's mastery of magic. By the way, Angela was also strengthened by Xiaoming and can be regarded as a little Alice. In addition, Xiaoming no longer uses the armed bulletproof car that was moved from the underworld. It takes up a lot of space in Guangmingding. He simply gave it to Alice together with the weapons. Xiaoming himself has the mind beast Zhanghong and the transformer follower Xiajia. This car is not a big deal. Later, this group of people and the undead did a lot of earth-shaking things in this world, which is another story. The Insect King directly returned to the Chu Galaxy and continued to preside over the work of the Zerg. After sending away Zhang San, the hidden danger, Xiaoming felt like he had put down a big burden. He felt much better. The insects were in high spirits when they encountered good things. Soon, another piece of great good news came. The insects sent out for reconnaissance encountered the messengers of other masters. Through the spirit, he told Green Xiaoming that there was an asteroid colony suitable for nesting in a certain direction. This made Xiaoming ecstatic. Zergs rarely cheat each other, even among the overlords. And it is difficult for Xiaoming to be deceived by lies now. The Zerg King led the Zerg army under his command and began to move in that direction. It is estimated that it will take about 2 days to travel. At the same time, Zhang Xiaoming, who was sitting in the high-level reception room of the hive, was being bullied by Miss Li's 9th daughter. Originally, he came to the hive to exchange with Red Tide, probably because high-level items are really difficult to get. After Xiaoming arrived, Sister Red Tide arranged for him to wait in the high-level reception room for a while. She still had to contact some people. Xiaoming didn't think it was an offense. The high-level covenant had been signed, so there was no need to worry at all. Now it was like this, but it showed that the other party attached great importance to it. After waiting for a while, the door of the conference room opened, but it was not Red Tide who came in, but Miss Li's 9th daughter Li Songrui, flying kick. Xiaoming did the same thing as her 3rd brother, and was kicked obediently, but also took the initiative to fly out. However, the 3rd young master of the Li family had a distorted face in order to please his sister. Xiaoming just fell out with the momentum, so that she would feel that he was kicked. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 585. Miss Ju suddenly appeared, and this matter had nothing to do with the Red Tide lineage. She used the intelligence power of the Li family. Previously, Miss Ju, Daitang Xiaoyun, Do Kunfang, and Zhang Xiaoming formed a temporary team. Brush a League of Legends mission. Xiaoming also took Lan Dali away. However, Xiaoming is a homebody. After a mission, he was too lazy to death. Not only did he not participate in the next 1 or 2 missions, but he couldn't even be contacted. In fact, the real reason was that Xiaoming went to the Qinglong branch and stayed there for several days. Of course, he couldn't be contacted. If he could be contacted, the little princess could ask Xiaoming for spiritual fruits herself, without having to ask others to send them over. And others actually had more face than her, and Zhang Xiaoming sent a large basket of spiritual fruits. She didn't care that this was something her family exchanged for 3 treasures. In Li Songrui's eyes, this was a big deal. How dare he not give her face? She wanted to go directly to Xiaoming's house. However, in reality, it is a taboo for the reincarnationists to come to the door. If the relationship is not good enough, you can't do this. So there was such a thing. The Li family's spy found Xiaoming coming to the hive and immediately notified him. Miss Ju arrived not long after. He came to the door and kicked her without saying a word. Although he acted very tough, Xiaoming could see that if he didn't coax her well, the girl would cry. In her heart, she was actually worried that the leader brother with a good smell hated her. Children are like this. No matter what the actual situation of the adults is, if you don't accompany me, you don't like me. At this time, reasoning is useless, and Xiaoming can only be humble and persuade her with kind words. After saying all the good words, Miss Ju burst into tears and laughed. "Brother, wait for me. I'm going to take the mission now. I'll go inform brother Xiaoyun and sister Do." Then she turned to Hong Chao and said, "Sister Hong Chao, you are not allowed to trick brother leader away." After being called little clever by Hong Chao and rubbing her head, she ran out in a flash. Hong Chao also said a lot of good things to trick such a little time alone. Xiaoming and Hong Chao looked at each other. Time was limited, and the two of them didn't want to bargain. Xiaoming directly took out General's blood essence and handed it to Hong Chao. Hong Chao gave Xiaoming a big list. There were many items listed in it, most of which Xiaoming didn't know what they were. However, the detailed explanation of these things is also valuable information. Let's put it this way, if Hong Chao explained everything to Xiaoming, the value of the information alone would be equal to the general's blood essence. So at this moment Xiaoming still had to try his luck. Or choose something he was more familiar with. For example, the blood of the Uchiha family, the blood of the Hulk, and so on. The price of the general's blood is A and grade. It can be exchanged for 1 A and grade item, or 2 A grade items, or 3 A grade items. B grade items cannot be written in this list. Xiaoming was dazzled by the list. He could only pray to Hong Chao for help. "Sister, give me a hint." Hong Chao shook her head. "In this situation, it may not be a good thing for me to give you a hint. You have to rely on your intuition." Xiaoming also understood this. In his intuition, Hong Chao's hint is not more reliable than his random choice. And Xiaoming, who has 3 kinds of source energy, is still confident. It's okay to choose a few unfamiliar things. No matter what it is, it should be able to be used with source energy. In the end, it was Miss Ju who really made the choice for Xiaoming. She left for less than 5 minutes and ran back. Seeing her, Xiaoming's eyes lit up. Since it was a matter of luck, it would be better to let this little girl choose. During the last mission, Zhao Yun said that Miss Ju's luck was quite good. She is really lucky to be able to rely on Xiaoming, this weirdo. The little girl was not polite. She closed her eyes and chose for Xiaoming. It looked like a strangely shaped stone, and also like some kind of broken parts. Unfortunately, even Zhang Shizu's circle didn't know what this thing was. They could only feel that it was extraordinary, but couldn't tell what it was. Hong Chao never expected that this thing would be chosen. It would take a long time to get it. So Xiaoming, who was idle, was dragged by Miss Ju to do the Alliance's mission. Xiaoming didn't know how strong Miss Ju's lucky aura was, but choosing such a thing seemed to be very telling. For a while, Xiaoming was full of hope for that treasure. You know, your source energy can restore its original appearance. If A and grade waste can be restored, it will at least be S grade, maybe even higher. Miss Ju's luck may be reflected here. At this time, you must take good care of the little princess. Otherwise, what will she do if her luck runs out? Sister 9, this title is what the little girl asked for. Brother can help you master very powerful supernatural energy. Do you want it? With Xiaoming's strength, of course, he can judge that Miss 9 only has a decent internal force now. She has not mastered any supernatural energy. Looking at Zhao Yun's strength, Xiaoming can probably guess. The Li family has made great achievements in Chinese martial arts. So learning the family martial arts is of course good for Miss 9. It's just that the way of martial arts is very difficult, and those who practice martial arts must have a tenacious spirit and perseverance. Li Songrui is still young, and it's really not suitable. Perhaps it is more appropriate to practice supernatural energy. The Li family may have sent Miss 9 into the reincarnation space for this reason. Now that he has formed a close alliance with Zhang Shizu's lineage, he no longer needs to worry too much about the crime of possessing a treasure. That's why he dared to say this. Sure enough, as soon as the words came out, the life energy of Datang Zhaoyun and Do Kunfang on the opposite side was shaken, and their emotions fluctuated. But no one dared to speak, and they all listened attentively to the conversation between Zhang Xiaoming and Miss 9. Xiaoming's tone was indeed too big. People who can learn supernatural energy without going through the reincarnation space are already at the genius level. People who can open a supernatural energy to ordinary people are not geniuses. Of course, they were still half believing and half doubting at this time, thinking that Xiaoming might have been rewarded with something with similar functions by his master. This is actually rare. Miss 9 said unceremoniously, okay, then I want them all. No, only adults can have them all, children must make choices, Xiaoming replied. Cough, cough, cough. Zhaoyun and Do Kunfang coughed together to remind Xiaoming to be careful when talking to children and not to drive. At this moment, an autonomous hovercraft provided by the League of Legends was carrying 4 people in the night sky. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 586. It turns out that Xiaoming underestimated the profoundness of the reincarnation space. Miss Ju mentioned several names, but Xiaoming had never heard of them. What is Attack on Titan? What is a subhuman? What the hell is a ghoul? To be honest, Miss Ju wrote the word, but Xiaoming still didn't know it. Xiaoming felt very embarrassed by the unknown things. It was Zhao Yun of the Tang dynasty who saw his young lady making trouble, and Zhang Xiaoming was embarrassed, so he said something fair to save the situation. Brother Zhang, what Miss Ju said are all bloodlines, not any energy system. She was joking with you. After that, the eyes of several people were focused on Miss Ju's face. The little lowly shrank at first, a little embarrassed. Then she became tough, straightened her airport figure, and looked at the 3 people's weird eyes coldly without showing any weakness. Everyone could only ignore her. Zhao Yun smiled and said, "You can't chew too much. Brother Zhang, if you can, please open her spiritual power. Our lineage is good at martial arts. When martial arts are mastered, they can enter the Dao through martial arts. Being able to open spiritual power in advance will be of great benefit to martial artists like us. Please rest assured, Brother John, my family head will not object. The Li family has a family rule for this matter. When you encounter an opportunity to open spiritual power, you must never miss it. Xiao Ming took another look at Miss Ju's expression and realized that it was true. The Li family's family rule is understandable. According to Xiao Ming's own feeling, using spiritual power to use martial arts can indeed produce several times the effect. Xiao Ming's shadow clone met some martial artists in the secret realm of the legend of the two dragons of the Tang dynasty and also saw some superficial kung fu. To be honest, you can learn it after watching for a while. But for Xiao Ming, this level of kung fu is basically useless. It's just that Xiao Ming was given some means for experimentation. Even this kind of superficial kung fu is extremely powerful when it is used with spiritual power. It is true that martial artists benefit greatly from learning spiritual power. Xiao Ming nodded and said, "Okay." After that, a ray of light seeped out of Xiao Ming's body and entered Miss Ju's body. In a short while, Zhao Yun and Dou Kunfang, who were watching, clearly felt that Li Songrui already had spiritual power, and his foundation was not weak. Dou Kunfang was a barrier master, and also a profession that used spiritual power to fight, so he could naturally feel it. Zhao Yun had seen too much inside the Li family. He could tell at a glance whether ordinary people had spiritual power or not. At this time, Brother Yun couldn't help but sigh in amazement. It was indeed the famous Koi in his family. He was just lucky. Spiritual power is a supernatural energy of extremely high level and difficult to obtain. Every time in the family, a huge price must be paid to allow an outstanding child to get the opportunity to open spiritual power. The success rate is only 50-50. In the entire Li family, Miss Ju is the first one to obtain spiritual power so easily. But it cannot be said that there will be no more. After making friends with Zhang Xiaoming, later comers will appear one after another. The Dou family also has a secret channel to obtain spiritual power. The price paid will be smaller, and the spiritual power obtained is also limited, but the cooling time is much longer than that of the Li family. The two families are the same. However, the two of them are closest to Xiaoming and are related persons. They have already known the news that Xiaoming and Zhang Shizu's forces have formed an iron alliance. They naturally don't think that Xiaoming simply wants to please the Koi Li Songrui. They just think that Xiaoming is doing diplomacy. This is also a normal phenomenon. Any emerging force that wants to gain a foothold must use both kindness and force. Show strength, at the same time, give some benefits to all forces. Of course, all parties will return the favor. In this way, everyone will get along well in the future. Alliance with Zhang Shizu's lineage is undoubtedly a powerful display of its own strength. Providing the opportunity to open supernatural energy is a benefit to all forces. This benefit can be said to be quite sincere. Zhao Yun and Dou Kunfang both secretly praised in their hearts, worthy of being a big force, doing things is generous. Xiao Ming didn't know that his unintentional action was actually filled in by these two people. He was paying close attention to Miss Ju's reaction. The little Lolita felt the warm and gentle spiritual power in her body, and she felt happy all over. The little girl's eyebrows and eyes were so comfortable that she squinted, and she looked like a kitten basking in the sun. Looking at her appearance, Xiao Ming felt that this wave of operations should be stable. The things that Hong Chao used to exchange must be good things. Speaking of which, he was very lucky to get the fire source. At that time, Xiao Ming thought about whether he should do this every time he entered the reincarnation world in the future. Anyway, he can cross the boundaries of the world and adjust the length of stay at will. He can walk more. After visiting hundreds of worlds, he will always encounter treasures that he is more optimistic about, right? That would be rich. But as soon as this idea came up, he also felt ridiculous. High-level treasures like the fire source with such poor security should not be common. He must have taken advantage of his VIP status. If other reincarnations did not have corresponding tasks, they would probably not be able to get close to the fire source. Besides, in other worlds, most treasures must have strong enough guardians. A world like Transformers 1 is definitely rare. And in the dark, Xiaoming has a vague feeling of foreboding in his heart. In the past, he has always been a happy-go-lucky person. Collecting treasures like this crazily is also against his nature. Being too greedy is probably not a good thing. Brother leader, the spiritual power is what Brother Yun said, but it's not what I want. I actually want something else. Miss Nine, who had spiritual power, was still not satisfied. She cunningly pulled Xiaoming's arm and complained. Xiaoming must have agreed to her every request now, so he had to say helplessly. Sister Hongqiao is right. You are a little devil. Tell me, what else do you want? It's agreed that you can only ask for one more thing. Children should not be too greedy. Magic, magic. I want to be able to use the magic in our game. Don't try to lie to me. I know you can do it. Okay, I'll listen to you. So Li Songrui was opened up by Xiaoming again. The opening process was so simple and casual. It seemed that it was missed in a blink of an eye. But the magic fluctuations on Miss Nine could not be deceived. Zhao Yun and Do Kunfang were stunned again. They all knew how powerful spiritual power was, but spiritual power was also difficult to cultivate. It was not a big force that could not afford to support a cultivator. The consumption was too high. But magic power was different. With their status, they certainly knew the Yanhuang 3-star system full of magic power. Their family has a very close relationship with the New Han Kingdom, so it is not difficult to send people there for training. This is much easier than training ascetics. Moreover, magic is quite common in the reincarnation world. It has a wide range of applications. This is really a treasure. Omega, even their eyes were full of stars. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhenshen. Chapter 587. The mission that the League of Legends gave to the little Lolita would definitely not be a very dangerous one. Who among the staff in the hive doesn't know Miss Li's 9th daughter? Giving her a dangerous mission, are you crazy? And there are many people in the league with similar status to Miss Li. What kind of mission can be given to these people has long been an unspoken rule in the league. All employees are familiar with it. This time the mission is to hunt down a werewolf reincarnation who committed murder and was injured and fled in the deep mountains and old forests. In principle, it doesn't matter whether he lives or dies. The League of Legends rarely wrongly accuses reincarnations, and even those who are not guilty of minor crimes can make meritorious contributions. So those who choose to escape are almost all really guilty. At least this time, before the taxi arrived at the designated location, Xiaoming felt the evil life energy from a distance. Everyone didn't know that Xiaoming had a strong reconnaissance ability. But knowing that the opponent's strength was not very good, they simply divided into 3 groups to chase. Datang Zhaoyun directly chose the direction where the werewolf was. The combination of Xiaoming and Li Songrui was sent far away. The direction given to Do Kunfang was also wrong. Xiaoming and Do Kunfang just looked at Zhaoyun and smiled, and Zhaoyun also smiled awkwardly, and everyone knew it tacitly. It turned out that everyone knew the real direction of the werewolf. And Zhaoyun did not want Miss Nine to be in danger, and he also wanted to have fun. No matter how the process was, the final points were always divided equally among the 4 people. Do Kunfang was happy to be idle, and Xiaoming was also happy to play with the little Lolita. Anyway, each person can only get 1 point for such a small task, so why bother to compete with Brother Yun? The 4 people went in 3 directions. Once someone completed the task, they would contact everyone by phone to return. Datang Zhaoyun took the lead and set off. Do Kunfang symbolically walked a distance in her direction, and then stopped to practice the barrier technique. Only Xiao Ming's group, knowing that there was no enemy ahead, still pretended to keep going. After a while, the little Lolita was bored. "Brother leader, give me a few skeleton soldiers to play with, okay?" Seeing Xiao Ming was stunned, he did not answer immediately. She added, "My third and fifth brothers both said that your skeleton soldiers are very interesting." Xiao Ming smiled bitterly and said in his heart, "What your brother said is interesting is not the same as what you understand as interesting. If you understand it in your way, it will probably be boring. Where can I find some interesting skeleton soldiers for you?" I had to smile and said, "Ninth sister, my skeleton soldiers are actually the same as in the game, very boring. How about this, I will teach you the magic of summoning skeleton soldiers." After more than 2 hours and 20 minutes, Zhao Yun had killed the werewolf and notified everyone to return. Xiao Ming has been watching the battle. The werewolf bloodline is indeed very bloody, and the Jedi counter-attack under serious injury is still very fierce. However, Zhao Yun's spearmanship is as good as a god, and the defense is very strict. Not only was the werewolf's counter-attack completely ineffective, but it also exposed an empty door. Zhao Yun found the right opportunity to stab it 3 times and it died. At this time, the little loli still had not learned the magic of summoning skeleton soldiers. And Xiao Ming also saw that she was actually more suitable for fire magic. Undead magic was too difficult for her. But Xiao Ming didn't know fire magic, so he couldn't teach her. And even if he told Li Songrui, the little girl would refuse to listen. Xiao Ming had no choice but to let her continue practicing. Let's just call it exercise. On the contrary, Xiao Ming gained a lot. Although he kept walking and stopping with the little loli, he was always not far away from Do Kunfang. He circled around her. Xiao Ming saw and remembered the whole process of Do Kunfang's practice of barrier art. It didn't take long for Xiao Ming to learn the basic usage of her barrier art. Create a cubic space surrounded by a barrier out of thin air. Detonating the barrier can detonate the things covered in the space. Whether it will die or not depends on whether the thing is hard. Moreover, Do Kunfang's barrier art is quite interesting, much more flexible than the barrier art that Xiao Ming learned from Uncle Chiu, but it also consumes much more spiritual power. One of the ways to use it is to create a barrier in mid-air, and then people can jump on it and land. It is equivalent to opening up a battlefield in the air. If a row of mid-air barriers are created, people can also run, spin, and jump on it. But you must keep your eyes open, because if you step on empty air, you will be in trouble. There is no such trick in the barrier technique that Uncle Chiu practices. The reason is also very simple. Do Kunfang's barrier technique comes from a world with relatively strong spiritual power. Therefore, combat power is prioritized, and consumption is not the biggest problem. Uncle Chiu's barrier technique was used by Taoist priests and celestial masters to exorcise ghosts and demons in an era when the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was already weak. The spiritual power of Taoist priests in this era was not strong, so they had to be very economical when using it. The arrangement of barriers also requires the assistance of talismans. Otherwise, they cannot afford the consumption. All of this is normal and in line with the development direction of the specific environment. If the two sides switch positions, they will also develop the barrier technique of the other party. And Xiao Ming also found that there is a square mark on Do Kunfang's left arm. Every time she used the barrier technique, a spiritual force would emanate from the mark to assist her in completing the spell. This power seemed to be a power similar to blood. And the square mark played the role of blood to a certain extent. I didn't expect that there was such a way to play in space. Putting a stamp on your body can give you a blood. But Xiao Ming doesn't need it. His spiritual power has experienced another 5 years of growth in Zombie Agreement 2. Although his realm is still maintained at the late stage of foundation building. However, his spiritual power is much higher than before. The stagnation of realm has not affected Xiaoming's accumulation of spiritual power at all. Now using a small barrier technique is simply a piece of cake. After parting with everyone and returning home, Xiaoming did not rush to log into the game, but continued to practice the barrier technique. Xiaoming felt that this spell has many applications that can be developed. Now is the time when he is most interested and his ideas are flowing. It would be bad to interrupt at this time. He practiced until 12 noon and did not stop. When the spiritual power is used up, he immediately went to Guangmingding. Using the Changsheng Qi training technique, it takes less than an hour to replenish the spiritual energy. Practice again after it is full, and replenish it again after it is used up. When Xiao Jing'er came out of the game cabin, she happened to see Xiaoming practicing. She couldn't learn such a complicated trick. But she provided Xiaoming with a good idea. The barrier made by Xiaoming is like a sieve, which can set what can pass through and what cannot pass through. This is a very interesting feature. Xiao Jing'er proposed a plan to let Xiaoming make a small barrier and let a cup full of water fall freely from the top of the barrier. The cup passes through and falls on the table, while the water is left in the barrier. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 588. Xiao Jing'er sister's suggestion is very interesting. This requires Xiaoming to set different faces of the cube barrier. That is to say, the upper barrier allows both water and cups to pass through, the lower and side barriers do not allow water to pass through, only allowing cups to pass through. It sounds very interesting. Xiaoming's mental strength is so strong that few people can match him. This seemingly complex multi-line setting is exactly his strength. This is a good research direction. At the beginning, in order to make the barrier easier to cast, Xiaoming will also use 3 heads and 6 arms, which is more suitable for multi-line operation. I wanted to teach the barrier technique to Xiao Jing'er, but my sister thought that she would not be able to chew too much, and she is now concentrating on running in with Bing Lun 1. Xiaoming entered the game in the afternoon. At this time, Mao Mao ER and Xioxio ER were playing in the insect swarm in the Chu galaxy. Xioxio ER has not yet cultivated to the point where he can survive in space, but Mao Mao ER is here. Turn into Iron Man armor and put Xiao Xiao in it. Mao Mao ER's body is hot-blooded Neza. After he ate the human fruit, he can adjust Neza's settings by himself. After his own improvement, the form of Iron Man armor can not only ensure the survival of the people inside, but also fly freely in space. Although the spiritual energy in Guangmingding is rich, the space is a bit small, not enough for them to toss. It's better to fly around in space. To be honest, the current hot-blooded Neza and Mao Mao ER are almost completely separated from Xiaoming, and there is no problem even if they survive independently. Xiaoming himself has no plan to make another one. No need. The Insect King can survive in outer space by itself and does not need any equipment. The main body does not usually enter the universe. Even if it goes, if it protects itself well, it does not need additional equipment. Spirit Shield can resist the rays in the universe, and there is also a B and level mithril soft armor inside, as well as the final guarantee Guardian of Love. Safety is no problem. And Zhang Xiaoming, who has achieved success in cultivating immortals, no longer needs food, water, air, and other things. He can survive with spiritual power. For this reason, Xiaoming's main body specially went to Chu star system through Guangmingding to stay for a while. There was no danger, but it was not interesting. After the experiment, Xiaoming left. He was more needed in the game. Brother, let's hand over the ship quickly. I can't wait. The general of the Li family pirates, the famous playboy James Reed, who hugged the researcher's neck and tried to get close to him. This sentence is also the voice of everyone in the Li family. The researcher's fleet left Quanzhou and took nearly a week to arrive at Diaokan, the headquarters of the Li family. There is no way. The route from Quanzhou to Diaokan is a route controlled by pirates, or more precisely, a route controlled by the Li family. Quanzhou, Hangzhou, and Yizhou are all routes controlled by the Ming dynasty. There are tens of thousands of ships traveling back and forth every day. The route is very busy. There are far fewer ships on the pirate-controlled routes. In addition, the economy of Diaokan has not yet developed. The number of ships traveling back and forth is quite scarce. So there are relatively more resources on the sea, because no one picks them up. There are also many wild monsters that can be attacked. That's why the second fleet was delayed for so long. The strategic level of the researcher has been upgraded to level 1 and level 5, and the random points are added to strategic defense. The free points are added to strength by the intelligent program. And he got a somewhat ordinary professional talent, primary reconnaissance, which increases the hero's reconnaissance range by 10%. This is quite useful for heroes like the fleet admiral of the researcher. It can't be said that the intelligent program chose the wrong one. Although Xiao Ming himself has super reconnaissance ability, he only goes online occasionally, and usually the intelligent program is operating. This talent still has its place. At the same time, the primary admiral skin of the researcher has also been upgraded by 1 level, and now it is level 8. In fact, the researcher can still wander around the sea for a few more days, and even go to Izu Island for a visit. There are so many things on it. But Li Huamei can't wait, so she notifies the researcher by pigeon and orders him to lead the fleet to Diaokan as soon as possible. Needless to say, it must be to urge the researcher to hand over the remaining 4 large warships. The Li family had long known that Xiao Ming drove 5 large ships to various ports in Daming. From top to bottom, everyone was looking forward to it. The researcher was still slowly picking up resources at sea. How could Li Huamei not be anxious? After the second fleet arrived at the port, because Xiao Ming did not log into the game, the system could not hand over the ship. Until Xiao Ming came online, Li Huamei had not spoken yet, and a group of subordinates and generals took the sailors and snatched away the 4 large ships except the flagship of the second fleet. Only Xingju Beimu and Yan Duque accompanied the researcher to watch the excitement. The goods unloaded from the large ships filled the warehouse, and tens of thousands of sailors who were driven off also filled the dock. The researcher was full of black lines. Do you have to be so anxious? I haven't clicked to confirm here yet. Yan patted the researcher on the shoulder and said with a smile, understand it. We have been coveting it for a long time. I guess you can get other large warships, right? That's right. Xiao Ming waved his hand and released another 4 large warships. The sailors of the second fleet started to work again, loading the goods onto the new warships. The generals of the Li family were at a loss. The new ships looked majestic and obviously better than the 4 old ones. If I had waited a little longer, wouldn't I have been able to get these 4 new ships? Now I can't ask for them anymore. Although the Li family is a pirate, they still have some integrity. I can only watch with envy. At this time, Li Huamei came over with a heroic look, followed by Yang Ziyu and Richard. When he came closer, the admiral bowed and said, "My benefactor, it's great that you are back. Tonight, my husband and I have set up a family dinner to welcome you, please be sure to come." After finishing his private matters, he straightened his back and immediately changed his style. "Admiral the researcher, a military meeting will be held immediately. Bring your subordinates with me." After that, he turned around and threw his red cloak casually, looking handsome. The heroes, generals, and leaders of the first and second fleets of the Li family pirates followed her and strode towards the municipal center with heroic spirit and domineering. Behind them were tens of thousands of Li family pirates, waving their swords and shouting loudly. And there were 10 towering large warships in the port. At this moment, the power of the Li family pirates was unprecedentedly strong. It seemed that they had jumped over a decade of development time in an instant. In one fell swoop, They had the strongest combat power in East Asia. No matter where the sword pointed, it would bring huge shocks to the situation in this region. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 589. Who will the Li family pirates eventually go to war with? Almost all of East Asia knows it, except for those high-ranking officials of the Ming dynasty who are just sitting there doing nothing. Needless to say, they will definitely go to war with the Rice-Hima family. However, the Rice-Hima family is very powerful. Although they don't have large ships, they have enough medium-sized ships. There are 5 powerful pirate fleets under their command, and there are more than 20 miscellaneous fleets like Rice-Hima Koichiro, who was subdued by Xiao Ming. If the whole army fights, the Li family will be defeated without a doubt. But it is difficult for the Rice-Hima family to find an opportunity to gather the whole army to go to war with the Li family. Knowing that they will lose, the Li family will certainly not fight that kind of decisive battle. At this time, the Rice-Hima family does not know where the headquarters of the Li family pirates is. There are several suspicious areas. If they find Diaokan, they may press the whole army and force the Li family to have a decisive battle. Of course, it is hard to say whether the Li family will fight. With Richard's wisdom, he may give up Diaokan and fight guerrilla warfare. If the Li family cannot be forced to fight a decisive battle, the fleet of the Rice-Hima family cannot always stay together. There are still many businesses to do. Once they are dispersed, any fleet caught by the Li family will be doomed. Even if 2 or 3 fleets work together, they may not be able to resist. So the Ladeo family is in a headache now. The navies and pirate forces of other families in East Asia are more troublesome than the Ladeo family. Everyone speculates that the Li family may deal with some small and medium-sized pirates before going to war with the Ladeo family to expand its own strength. However, before that, it is hard to say whether the Li family will first hit the Ladeo family to make a name for themselves. In short, no one knows who the Li family will fight in the first battle. So everyone is waiting for the Li family to make a move. The pirates on the East Asian seas were in danger for a while. Even the acts of burning, killing and looting were restrained. They were afraid of running into the muzzle of the gun. Some forces also began to actively form alliances. Either look for the Li family, or look for the Ladeo family, or unite with each other to protect themselves. During this period, sea merchants from all over the country were very happy. Because the sea was really much safer. Now Li Huamei didn't know how much she hoped that this matter could be kept secret. If the researcher had shown the large warship in Diaokan at the beginning, it would have been great. The Li family could definitely make a breakthrough and catch the Rice-Hima family off guard. Now that the Li family fleet is in front of various forces, the situation has become unclear. The Rice-Hima family is also actively seeking countermeasures. If the war starts too late, the Rice-Hima family may find a way to deal with large warships. However, now that the ship has just been obtained, the generals and sailors are not very familiar with the performance of most ships. At this moment, the war is not well prepared. If the advantages of large ships cannot be fully utilized, it may even shoot itself in the foot. So before Xiao Ming came back, the Li family had been training troops in turns on the only large ship. At this time, Li Huamei received a pigeon message from the researcher. She learned that the 3 brothers of Rice-Hima Koichiro had surrendered to her side. And all the supply bases and secret warehouses of the Rice-Hima family were revealed. These are all dry goods. If all these strongholds were taken down at once, the Ladeo family would be severely damaged. The subsequent strategies and tactics would be easier to arrange. But doing so requires one's own strength. One large warship is definitely not enough to support such a large operation. At least another 4 large warships are needed. So Li Huamei urgently ordered Xiaoming to return to Diaogan. Unexpectedly, Xiaoming also brought back an unexpected surprise. I thought there were 6 large ships fighting this battle, but now there are 10, and the chance of victory has increased by 2 times. In the meeting room, everyone was happily discussing various tactics, and they all felt that this battle would be won. At this time, Li Huamei did not ask Xiaoming for more large warships. Because of the need to abide by the rules of the game, Li Huamei's current sphere of influence is still small. It is not allowed to hold more large warships. Some people noticed that the researcher suddenly showed joy, and thought he was amazed by the Li family's strategies and tactics. However, the fact is that Xiaoming suddenly discovered an interesting phenomenon. The spiritual kingdom can actually link shadow clones. This function did not exist before. Xiaoming originally used the map scan to find some familiar intelligent programs inside the Li family pirate group. They are equivalent to half of Xiaoming's spiritual replica. Then Xiaoming used the spiritual kingdom to integrate these half replicas. But unexpectedly found that not only did he achieve his goal, but he also linked the shadow clone in. Such a weird thing happened. Xiaoming felt that the pot should be taken by the mother of the earth, Nuwa. She gave Xiaoming 3 abilities to create people: body shaping, wisdom, and spiritual awakening. These abilities are different from the skills in the game. They will not work if they are not clicked. In reality, a person's knowledge, experience, and ability will affect all aspects of him. Therefore, these 3 abilities also have some minor effects on Xiaoming's other skills, or side effects. For example, the shadow clone. Even if Xiaoming did not activate the ability to create people when summoning the shadow clone, the summoned shadow clone will be closer to the real person than before. Whether it is the body, IQ, or soul, it is better than the previous shadow clone. This is the subtle effect of the ability to create people. And because of this subtle improvement, Xiaoming can now use the spiritual realm to connect the spirits of all shadow clones. According to the setting in ninjutsu, after the shadow clone is summoned, it is an independent individual. Only after being destroyed will the experience and memory be transmitted back to the original body. Usually, the shadow clones are in charge of their own affairs. So sometimes there will be collisions. Multiple shadow clones think of the same thing, and several people rush to do the same thing. As a result, manpower is wasted. Now that they are connected by the spiritual kingdom, Xiaoming and his shadow clones can communicate with each other and discuss things together. There will be no more collisions. The amazing thing is that the game system not only recognizes this, but also determines that the shadow clones in the spiritual kingdom can also obtain certain permissions of the player character. For example, 5 of the many shadow clones left by Xiaoming in the fleet were defaulted as acting captains by the system as soon as they were connected to the spiritual kingdom. The system also asked the acting captain whether to let other shadow clones take on various navigator positions. With the authority of the shadow clone, it is not enough to act as an acting admiral, but it is more than enough to act as the captain of a ship. It can also bring out certain attributes of the character itself. What's more, a shadow clone who was checking the warehouse received a small task: catching mice. The most annoying thing in the fleet is mice. Stealing food, destroying ships, spreading diseases, causing endless harm. So the fleet needs to clean up rats regularly. It is normal to receive such a small task in the warehouse. What is strange is that the person who accepted the task was actually a shadow clone, and the task received was actually added to the researcher's own task list. Xiaoming said, "It's a bit interesting, so I listened to it. I wish everyone a happy Mid-Autumn Festival." Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 590. In the past, Xiaoming's shadow clone could help him fight monsters, complete tasks, and gain experience. This was all allowed by the game system. Now the shadow clone has higher authority and can actively trigger and accept tasks. This means that any character of Xiaoming can take on and complete multiple tasks at the same time through a large number of clones. In addition, shadow clones can serve as acting captains or navigators, which means they can participate more deeply in the game and gain more experience for their characters. A shadow clone who is a captain and a shadow clone who is a sailor will definitely gain different experiences. In the past, due to its unafraid of sacrifice, the shadow clones often went deep into dangerous areas to check out information. Find a suitable path for the game character to enter. It's more convenient now. They can just trigger the mission directly after entering, and they no longer need to take risks with their own characters. Equally convenient is when delivering tasks. Some quest publishers or locations may be dangerous. Especially in the evil camp, many mission NPCs have quirks. Maybe when the task is delivered, it will be the player's death. Even in the righteous camp, there are actually NPCs who are not so reliable. There are more than 1 or 2 players who have been tricked by them. Although Xiaoming himself has not encountered such a situation. However, on player forums, some players have gradually shared similar experiences. At this time, the shadow clone with enhanced permissions is very useful. It's a pity that Xiaoming's shadow clone is running out. In reality, Xiaoming has always maintained the existence of several shadow clones, whether in Pangu or the Chu galaxy. Cooperate with various uniformed beasts, take care of daily affairs, and pay attention to the surrounding situation. In Guangmingding and Kunlun, there are always about 20 shadow clones practicing various techniques. In the main game of Magic Planet, as well as in several large secret realms, there are nearly 100 shadow clones moving around and collecting intelligence. So now, if Xiaoming creates another 100 or so shadow clones, it will be the end. If there are more, the physical and mental impact on Xiaoming will be more dangerous after the clone returns. The danger that Xiaoming felt was actually far from his limit. It's just that his personality is relatively lazy, so he naturally doesn't want to push himself to that extreme state. In many literary and film and television works, the protagonist often achieves a critical breakthrough and makes a comeback after being pushed to the limit. Xiaoming is not sure whether this statement is correct or not. But even if that were the case, Xiaoming was not interested. Peace and security are blessings. When the researcher uses Spirit Realm, he can only connect to a dozen shadow clones near the character. Only when the shadow clone is shrouded in the spiritual realm can this relatively high level of authority be obtained. After all, the shadow clone is different from the Zerg. Once a Zerg individual accepts the rule of a master-level spiritual kingdom, the connection will almost never be broken no matter where they go to the ends of the earth. Unless there are extreme circumstances, such as being transported to the reincarnation space. In that case, the connection is broken because the world is out of sync. Otherwise, the spiritual connection between the Zerg individual and its master is very close. But the shadow clone is no good. You can't stray too far from Xiaoming's character. This range is approximately 20 kilometers in radius. Beyond this distance, Xiaoming felt that the shadow clone would break away from the spiritual connection with himself. Xiaoming also conducted an experiment. Once Xiaoming switches roles, the spiritual kingdom skills will be completely interrupted. The permissions obtained by the clone also disappeared. So Xiaoming has to pay attention to this aspect. Never switch roles at critical moments. Xiaoming was too absorbed in thinking about his own affairs. I didn't notice anyone talking to the researcher in the meeting. Fortunately, the adjutant Lin Shen sitting next to him saw that something was wrong and stabbed him hard. Only then did Xiaoming react. Looking along Lin Shen's eyes, what he saw was Yi An's handsome half-elf face. Admiral Researcher, what do you think? For the sake of the overall situation, please sacrifice yourself temporarily. The Li family will not treat you badly. What's going on? Do you want me to sacrifice something? Xiaoming looked at Lin Shen confused. The latter whispered a few words quietly and told the whole story. It's actually nothing special. It is nothing more than temporarily borrowing the researcher's fleet and subordinates, and the Li family will send heroes to lead the training and battle. Researchers also have something to do. For this battle, the Li family wants to buy all of his quota for making puppets this week. The level 2-4 puppet canoe and the level 2 pirate puppet have great strategic value in this battle. The reason why the researcher's fleet was temporarily borrowed was that he believed that the researcher would not be able to complete so many puppets in a short period of time, so he planned to let him do manual work in Diao City. If the researcher takes the second fleet to train and go on an expedition, there won't be time to make puppets for everyone. These wealthy landlords plan to use Xiaoming as a permanent employee. Frog in the well. Xiaoming suddenly had the urge to pretend to be a slap in the face for underestimating himself. Ha 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 ha, it's just a puppet with 1370 command, what a joke. It won't take up much of my time. I'll make sure everything is done until tomorrow. Yang Zia was mature and prudent, and quickly advised, young man, don't be impatient. There is no such thing as joking in the army. Just give it a try first. We will discuss it later once we have the results. Soon after the researcher arrived, Li Huamei promoted him to the position of admiral of the squadron. It would be a lie to say that no one was jealous. Later, the stock of a large battleship and the order for 4 large battleships satisfied some generals and leaders. But there were still NPCs who envied and hated the researcher. When Xiaoming just spoke, someone wanted to take him down and make him sign a military order. Although he couldn't really do anything to the researcher, it was good to make him lose face. Only Xiaoming's subordinates knew the ability of their own admiral. They all had the look of wanting to see a good show on their faces. Or Yang Zia deeply felt the great kindness of the researcher to his young lady. He spoke first and set the tone of giving it a try. He shut these people up. Yang Zia had a high status and prestige in the fleet. Everyone dared to question the researcher as the admiral of the squadron, but no one dared to question Mr. Yang. Since he took the initiative to give the researcher a way out, everyone had to accept it. Xiaoming also felt that there was no need to stir up trouble, so he just gave up and nodded his head. The plan to send shadow clones all over the city to find tasks was put aside for the time being. The superiors have given us homework, so let's do it together. While the researcher was still meeting with the pirate leaders, nearly 100 shadow clones appeared in the cabins of the second fleet. They started to work quietly.